So kia ora everyone. First of all, just a huge amount of gratitude to everyone who has organised this. It's so amazing to see. The industry attracting this kind of crowd, and everyone in this room, I think, would probably all know we're preaching to converted a lot of the time. So this is where the seed starts, but it's our job to spread that seed as much as possible. So my name is Brad Lake from Christchurch. For the last 5 years, I have been part of a company called the Brothers Green, and I guess my story started as a rural banker. I was a rural banker down in Christchurch, looking after a whole bunch of farms up in North Canterbury. I guess getting a real insight into our traditional farming systems. When I first started, I was very green, but I was also walking into the worst drought we'd had in 30 years. On top of that, dairy farmers were getting paid about $1.50 less than it was costing them to produce a kilo of milk solids. So the whole idea that our farmers are producing the best food in the world, and this extremely high quality product we're producing didn't really was very incoherent with what I was experiencing around the kitchen table, and it was some really difficult conversations. Around that time, I also went through a couple of surgeries from rugby, and I came to the realization that the same people that grow the food that creates chronic disease, the same companies also own the pharmaceutical companies that heal that chronic disease. And this sort of light bulb moment went off in my head. And on top of that, I guess, the understanding of how important our diet is and how important whole foods are, and really taking that concept of food as medicine quite seriously, and then looking at alternative options for farmers. Hemp was just appeared to be this amazing answer, and it was interesting. We were having a conversation before, and I really think that hemp is the gateway to the kind of society and environment that we want to live in, and I think at the moment this group is probably much further ahead than most of the population in New Zealand. And I really think that hemp gives us the ability to bridge that gap between what is the mainstream and what is the people who are really aware of the environmental and social impacts that human beings are having. So I guess just today I really wanted to sort of express some of the learnings and challenges that we've faced as a retail hemp business. I guess from my angle, I really wanted to see hemp planted all over the Canterbury Plains, in conjunction with our traditional farming systems, not to take them over, but to be incorporated within those systems. And I really see the way we're sort of trying to portray it is that we produce white protein in the form of milk and red protein in the form of meat. And now it's time to get into green protein. And I think, there's despite anyone's, dietary beliefs or anything like that, there's a massive growing market and demand for green protein out there. And I really think hemp fits really well with that. And so I guess over the past 5 years, we not only have, I guess, when I first started, my dream was to get, hemp planted, but without demand for the product, which is probably what Andrew was talking about, there's no reason for a farm to grow that product. So the real challenging part, I believe, in this industry is actually generating demand for the product. And I think what traditionally has happened is that we've gone through this whole commodity phase of an industry, and then the sort of value-added sort of part sort of gets tacked on at the end, and it's a very small percentage of what that what happens in that. And I don't think we can afford to we don't have time to wait for that to happen. We need to really dive into the value-added high spec products that I believe the mainstream market is desperately looking for. And I guess that's really what we've learned over the past 5 years. When we first started, we were very much focused on telling the hemp story and the benefits of hemp from an environmental perspective. And I guess, we talk about it doing 50,000 uses, and I really think that actually loses the power that hemp brings to the table. And I guess over the last 2 years, what we've really learned is it's actually hemp is an amazing crop and it does all these amazing things, but it's actually the reason people buy it is for the problem that it solves for them. And that's really the acute reason that I think that this industry will grow. So it's actually, looking at those 50,000 uses and actually picking which problem for the customer is that solving, and it just happens to be that hemp can solve a lot of those problems. But I think really focusing these products, and not just in the food space, but in the building space and in the therapeutic space, towards specific problems that so many people are now facing, is going to see the most progress in both education and demand for the product. So it's definitely been really challenging. We were really big into, I guess our brand is called the Brothers Green. That's our main brand. We've also got a company called Mainland Hemp, which grows up in Culverden. We've got a drying plant down there, along with a processing facility, which processes the hemp seed into, I guess, protein, oil, and hemp hearts. And I think, like Andrew was saying, there's been this huge glut of seed that's been produced in the last couple of years, and I think there is a lot of motivation, I think, in the rural communities to do something different and to actually look at alternative cropping options and to get into the green protein space, but the real work needs to be done at the front end and at the retail end to actually educate the customer and for the customer to really understand, why would they use hemp, because it's great for the environment and all the rest of it, that's not enough for most mainstream people. It needs to really solve a problem. And I think, what we're really learning now is that there's actually so much, research and science now coming out about so many powerful compounds within the hemp plant that we should really be tackling. We've had science shoved down our throats for the last 2 years. And now we've finally got, now more than ever, we've got, these compounds are solving the problems that are just exponentially growing across the board. And one example for us has been our hemp seed oil for joints. When I first got into business, I thought that our target customer was going to be sort of, young, up and coming, forward thinking, sort of slightly hippie-ish tinge people. Whereas our biggest market is boomers, and that's because that product is solving a problem for them, which is joint health. They're waking up stiff and sore, and so that message has really shifted from, this hemp's this great plant that can do all these amazing things, to, all right, the GLA within the hemp seed oil is going to tackle inflammation in your joints, and you're going to feel better when you're waking up in the morning. And I think it's so important that the research that, you guys are going to be doing on the farm up here, I think that's incredible work that you're going to be doing. It's really building that story behind hemp around the science, because the science is there and we know it works and we know it can do all these amazing things, but people need the evidence and they need the research, to really back that up. And I think, when we talk about the whole idea of it being a gateway, well, I think, the sheer fact that a farmer can grow hemp, I believe whatever intention they ever go into growing hemp, I think in the practice of growing hemp and learning about it and not having to use insecticides and pesticides and so many chemicals and less water, naturally is almost evolving their consciousness into a space or a different paradigm of how they can farm. And so from our perspective, it's really important that we are literally spreading the demand and the awareness and the education of this plant and getting as much of it planted as possible, in as many different areas as possible, purely on the basis that obviously the energy that it brings to a farm, and the energy that it brings to people who are consuming it, a lot of the people that we're talking to, I guess, our target market now, which is this older generation, 50, 60 plus, as soon as they get past the fact that it doesn't contain THC and it's not psychoactive, all of a sudden it completely opens their mind to any product that comes from that plant. And I think
we were growing up in the 60s doing all that psychedelic stuff.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, and and as much as that sounds like a great idea, it didn't get through to the mainstream public, and the government never let it through. And I think from our perspective, I believe 90 or 95% of the benefit of cannabis comes from hemp. And I think the remaining recreational medical side, I really think will come later. But I think actually separating out hemp completely from medical or marijuana, high THC cannabis is our way forward, because our customers, and I know the customers who have the resources and the funds and the motivation to use our product and grow and generate that demand, are also the people who hold a lot of power and sway in our society, are not on board with THC at all, and they are not on board with recreational cannabis. And I think separating ourselves and our industry from that completely is going to make huge inroads for hemp. And I think, as I'm saying, we're preaching to the converted here, but there are so many people out there who literally don't know anything about hemp. They don't know why they would use it. They don't know what it's good for. And a lot of that, I think, stems from this historical misrepresentation of what hemp is and its attachment to medical or high THC cannabis. And I think the faster we can spread that message that, we're not, you can't smoke my t-shirt and get high, and you're not gonna be walking around, handing out our hempy bar and kids getting high at kindergarten and things like that. Because as soon as we step past that and we get that mainstream awareness to that tipping point, I really think that's when the demand is going to grow. And so, my message, I guess, from my perspective is, the more people get into the retail end of hemp, then the growing will come naturally. It's the horse before the cart. And so I really encourage you to get into sort of a retail branded product, or if you can, come and talk to me. I've got as much hemp as you need to start any product. But really focus on what you're doing and focus on what that problem solves for the customer, rather than the fact that it's hemp, because I think that's where you'll really get the most progress. So that's my story.
Yeah. Thank you, that was great.
Yeah, obviously in creating our new world, we want to support new businesses, right? Businesses with a mission, social enterprises, hemp businesses. And on that note, Igor's company, I don't actually know what it's called. Help. Oh, duh.
I couldn't see what that said. It didn't look. I thought it was.
Yeah. All right. So Igor's company, Help, is okay. Let me start. So we can all do our bit to help, right? And it seems like a small thing, but when we give feedback to companies, it makes a huge difference in how successful they're going to be. Yeah. So at lunchtime, you had some of this. It's Help and Hemp together. And Igor has asked us to give him feedback on the questionnaire. So you can use your phone camera and just click on that and do it that way if you want. You can also go and ask Igor directly, and he'll be able to help you do it. And also what we will do is also send it out on the email list, right? So on that note, how many people have already written? Who has not yet got the email list? Got them to write it down. And where is it? Who has that clipboard? Okay, there's the clipboard. And let's keep it passing around. So yeah, make sure you get on that list. Yeah. All right, fantastic. Wow, we are here today changing the world, aren't we? Making it better, bringing dreams forward. And